Hi, subscribe to the channel, and for 1000 subscribers on the channel a video with stories for 24 hours will be released and also a bonus which you will learn about in the future.
Randry, a successful businessman, returned home after a long day at work. His house was quiet and empty, which seemed strange. Irina, his wife, was usually home at this time. He sent her a few messages, but there was no answer. A few hours passed and Andrei began to worry. He tried to call Irina, but her phone was switched off. Overwhelmed with anxiety, he decided to check her computer to find any traces of her whereabouts. Entering her mail, Andrei found many letters sent to an address unknown to him. He opened one of the letters and read, "Dima, I miss you. I hope to see you soon. Today Andrei again refused to buy me a car, and I decided that I can't stand it anymore. I'm going to go to you for the weekend. I love you." Andrei couldn't believe his eyes. He continued reading the letters and learned more and more details about Irina's affair with some Dima. It followed from the correspondence that Irina regularly met with him in his apartment on the outskirts of the city. He also learned that Dima was a drug addict and that Irina had started using drugs with him. Shocked, Andrei felt his world crumble. He had always thought that their marriage was perfect, that they were happy together. And now he found out that his wife had betrayed him by choosing to live with a drug addict. Andrei decided to conduct his own investigation. He took the address he found in the letters and went there. When he arrived at the indicated house, his heart sank with pain. He saw Irina, in the company of Dima and his friends, leaving the entrance, barely able to stand on her feet. She looked exhausted and worn out. Andrei took several photos on his phone to have proof of her betrayal. Returning home, he did not know what to do next. He needed time to think everything over and make a decision. Irina returned home at night, and Andrei decided not to make a scene. He wanted to understand how far her relationship with Dima had gone, and how drugs were affecting her. Now he had to come up with a plan to not only deal with the betrayal, but also save Irina from her destructive path. The next morning Andrei couldn't resist starting a conversation with Irina. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes, but she tried to act as if nothing had happened. "Irina," he began, trying to speak calmly. "We need to talk." Irina, caught off guard, sat down nervously at the table. "What do you want to talk about?" Her voice was shaking, but she tried to remain confident. "About your weekend," Andrei answered, looking intently into her eyes. "Where were you? And with whom?" Irina hesitated, her gaze darting around the room, avoiding meeting his eyes. "I was at a friend's," she tried to lie. Andrei sighed quietly and put the photos he had taken the day before on the table. Irina froze when she saw them. "Irina, I know about you and Dima. I know that you are with him and that you use drugs together," Andrei said. "Why are you doing this? Why did you betray me?" Tears welled up in Irina's eyes and she clutched her head in her hands. "Andrei, I don't know what happened to me. It all started when you refused to buy me the car I dreamed of. You always said that I wanted too much, that my desires were not important. I met Dima by chance, and he showed me another world where I can be free, where I can get what I want," she said, sobbing. Andrei was shocked by her words. He couldn't believe that all of this happened because of the car. "Irina, do you understand that you not only betrayed me but also ruined your life? Drugs, this man. They will only destroy you," he said, trying to get through to her. Irina nodded silently, but Andrei understood that she still did not understand the seriousness of the situation. "I want you to stop all contact with Dima and start treatment. I am ready to help you if you agree to it," he offered. But Irina only shook her head. "I can't, Andrei. I'm already too deep. I love him and I can't live without him. Forgive me," she said, sobbing. Andrei realized that the situation was getting out of control. He couldn't just watch his wife destroy herself. He needed to find a way to protect her, even if she didn't want it. "Okay, Irina," he said quietly. "If you don't want treatment, I still won't leave you. I will do everything I can to save you." The next day, Andrei met with his friend Victor to discuss the situation. Victor, knowing the whole story, was shocked by Irina's behavior, and could not believe that she had changed so much. "Andrei, I understand that you want to help her, but listen to me," Victor began, choosing his words carefully. "She has already made her choice. You cannot drag her back if she does not want it herself. You are risking your life, your career, your future. Think about yourself and your well-being." Andrei nodded silently, although everything inside him was boiling. He knew that Victor was right, but he could not just leave Irina. "I understand what you are saying, Victor, but I cannot just watch as his wife, Lily, had whims, sure, but this felt different. It wasn't just a fleeting fancy, it was a deep-seated desire that seemed to consume her thoughts." He wondered what had changed, what had sparked this sudden obsession.
It's perfect, Richard. It's so me. Her eyes sparkled with a mix of excitement and determination, a look he hadn't seen in a long time. It was as if the car represented something more, something she desperately needed to reclaim.
He knew that tone. The pleading under the demand, the desperation veiled as desire. It was a tone that left him feeling helpless, caught between wanting to make her happy and fearing the consequences of giving in. He'd heard it more and more lately. It always coincided with the arrival of certain packages he wasn't supposed to see, packages that hinted at a life he wasn't part of, a life filled with secrets. Richard, Lily, we've talked about this, about the spending, about... He trailed off, knowing his words would fall on deaf ears. The arguments were becoming more frequent, more intense, and he felt the distance between them growing.
Don't. Just get me the car, Richard. Her voice was firm, leaving no room for negotiation. It was a command, not a request, and it stung more than he cared to admit.
The woman he loved, the woman who used to devour poetry and laugh at his terrible jokes, was fading, replaced by a brittle shell. She seemed lost in her own world, a world he no longer had access to. The pink BMW became a wedge, driving them further apart. It was a symbol of everything that was wrong, a glaring reminder of the growing chasm between them. It wasn't about the car, not really. It was about the chasm opening between them, a chasm filled with secrets and lies and a hunger Richard couldn't satisfy. He feared that no matter what he did, it would never be enough to bridge the gap that had formed between them. He found the paraphernalia first. It was a discovery that felt like a punch to the gut, a confirmation of his worst fears. The evidence was undeniable, staring back at him with a cold, unfeeling gaze. A small silver spoon tucked under the bathroom sink. It was such an innocuous object, yet it held the weight of 1,000 heartbreaks. He could almost see the scenes play out in his mind, the moments of desperation and surrender. A lighter with a scorched bottom. The blackened metal told a story of its own, one of repeated use and the slow, steady descent into darkness. Each scorch mark was a testament to the nights spent chasing a fleeting escape. His heart hammered against his ribs. The anxiety was overwhelming, a physical force that threatened to crush him from the inside. He could feel the panic rising, a tidal wave of fear and helplessness. Denial. A cruel friend whispered in his ear. It told him lies, sweet lies that he wanted so desperately to believe. Maybe it wasn't what he thought, maybe there was another explanation, something less devastating. Maybe it wasn't what he thought, maybe... But deep down he knew the truth. The signs were all there, glaring and undeniable. The confusion and worry etched on his face were mirrored in his heart. But the truth was a monster, lurking in the shadows, and it refused to be ignored. It was a relentless beast, always there, always waiting to pounce. He could feel its presence, a dark cloud that hung over every moment. Lily's once vibrant eyes were now clouded, distant. The spark that had once defined her was gone, replaced by a dull, lifeless gaze. It was as if she was no longer there, her soul trapped in a prison of her own making. Her laughter, once a melody, was now a brittle, jarring sound. It was forced, a hollow echo of what it used to be. Each laugh was a reminder of what had been lost, a painful contrast to the joy they once shared. She was disappearing piece by piece into the abyss of addiction. It was a slow, agonizing process watching her slip away. Each day, a little more of her was consumed, leaving behind a shell of the person she used to be. He tried to reach her. He begged, pleaded, threatened. His words were a desperate attempt to pull her back from the edge, to remind her of the life they had built together. But each argument ended the same way, with more distance between them. He enrolled her in rehab, his hope flickering like a candle in the wind. It was a fragile thing, easily extinguished by the harsh realities they faced, yet he clung to it, believing that this time things would be different. Each time she promised to get better, her words laced with a sincerity that tore at his soul. He wanted to believe her, to trust in her resolve. Her hopeful eyes were a beacon in the darkness, a glimmer of the woman he loved. Each promise, however, was broken, shattered on the altar of her addiction. The cycle was relentless, a cruel dance that left them both exhausted and broken. Each failure was a dagger to his heart, a reminder of the battle they were losing. Richard watched, helpless, as the woman he loved sacrificed everything, her dignity, her health, their love, to the insatiable hunger that consumed her. It was a spiral, a descent into a darkness that seemed to have no end. And all he could do was watch, powerless to save her from herself. She's destroying herself, Andrei replied. I have to try. Victor sighed and put his hand on his friend's shoulder. I understand you, but be careful. If the situation gets out of control, you can lose everything. Don't forget that, he warned. When Andrei returned home, he immediately felt that something was wrong. The front door was ajar, and loud voices and laughter were coming from inside. He went inside and was shocked by what he saw. The apartment, which he always kept clean and tidy, had turned into a real drug den. Bottles, syringes, and cigarette butts were strewn everywhere. There were several people in the living room, including Irina, who were clearly high on drugs. They were chatting happily and did not notice his presence. The orgy and unbridled scenes that were happening before his eyes caused a wave of anger in Andrei. He could hardly restrain himself from screaming. "What's going on here?" he asked loudly, trying to control himself. Irina, seeing him, tried to get up, but her movements were awkward and slow. "Andrei, it's just a party." "Relax," she said, trying to smile, but her eyes were empty and glassy. Andrei could no longer hold back. He walked up to one of the partygoers and forcibly pulled him out of the apartment. The others, seeing his determination and rage, hurried to follow his example. "Get out of here, everyone, now!" he shouted, pushing people out of his house. When the apartment was finally empty, he turned to Irina. "Do you understand what you're doing? You're ruining our lives," he said, barely holding back tears. Irina just looked at him, unable to answer. Andrei knew that this was the last chance to save her and himself. He had to make a difficult decision and do everything he could to rebuild his life and protect Irina, even if she didn't realize it herself. After Andrei kicked everyone out of the apartment, he was left alone with Irina. They were silent for a long time, standing in the middle of the destroyed living room. Andrei understood that Irina needed help, but he also realized that he could not tolerate her behavior any longer. "Irina, I don't know what happened to you, but I can't live like this anymore," he said, trying to remain calm. "I want to help you, but you have to want it yourself." Irina sobbed and hung her head, not knowing what to say. Andrei sighed and came closer to her, hugging her. "Let's go to the bedroom," he suggested quietly. "We need to talk." Irina nodded and they went to the bedroom together. There, alone with each other, they spent the night discussing their situation and remembering the past. Andrei felt that this might be their last chance to be together. He tried to convey to Irina the seriousness of her actions and the consequences they would lead to. When the morning came, Andrei realized that his decision was inevitable. "Irina, you need to leave," he said, getting out of bed. "I can't live with you anymore until you change." Irina burst into tears, realizing that Andrei was serious. "Please don't do this," she begged. "I'll try to change, I promise." Andrei shook his head. "You have to prove it with your actions, not with your words," he answered firmly. "I love you, but I can't stand what's happening anymore. Go away and find yourself. If you really want to come back, you have to prove it." With these words, he helped Irina pack her things and led her out of the house. She cried, begged him to change his mind, but he remained steadfast. After Irina left, Andrei contacted one of his guards, Peter, and instructed him to keep an eye on her. "Peter, I want you to keep an eye on Irina for a couple of days," he said. "Make sure she's okay and that she doesn't get into any trouble. Let me know anything that happens." Peter nodded, accepting the order. "Understood, Andrei, I'll do my best," he replied. Andrei felt relieved to know that someone would be watching over Irina. He hoped that this time would help her realize that she needed to change her life and get back on the right path. "Leave me alone!" she screamed. "No one needs me anymore!" The situation quickly got out of control. Passers-by started posting videos of Irina on social media, and these images quickly spread. Soon everyone found out that this woman was the wife of a famous businessman, Andrei. Andrei was sitting in his office when his phone started exploding with notifications. Colleagues and friends sent him links to videos featuring Irina. His heart sank with pain and shame. He couldn't believe that the situation had gone so far. One of the videos, where Irina had sex with a stranger right on the street, went viral, collecting millions of views. People in the comments discussed her fall, condemned her, and expressed sympathy for Andrei. Andrei was shocked, but he knew that he had to act. He decided to hire the best lawyers and reputation management specialists to minimize the damage to his business and personal life. "I will do everything possible to protect my children and my reputation," he told Pyotr. "And Irina, she made her choice. I hope that one day she will understand what she has done and try to change her life." Andrei continued to follow the news about his wife, hoping that one day she would find the strength to break out of this vicious circle and start all over again. Andrei could no longer calmly watch what was happening. The scandals around Irina were destroying his reputation and jeopardizing the future of their children. He felt that every new day brought more problems and pain. "Pyotr, I can't stand this anymore," Andrei told his guard when he came to him with another report. "Irina is ruining our family's name. I have to do something. I will have to kill her or put her in prison." Pyotr looked at Andrei carefully, realizing how serious the situation was. "Andrei, I understand your despair, but murder is not the solution. We must find a way to legally and safely remove her influence from your life and reputation." Andrei thought about it. He knew that Peter was right. Murder was an extreme step that would bring even more problems. But putting Irina in prison seemed a more realistic option. "We must collect evidence of her crimes," Peter continued. "Drug addiction, public disorder, and debauchery. All of this could become the basis for her arrest and prosecution." Andrei nodded, realizing that this was indeed the best path. "Okay, Peter, start collecting evidence. I want everything to be done legally. She must answer for her actions." Over the next few weeks, Peter, along with private detectives and lawyers, collected all the necessary materials. Witnesses, videos, and documents confirming Irina's criminal actions were found. Andrei filed a report with the police, and soon, Irina was arrested. All of her activities in recent months came under the close attention of law enforcement agencies. She was awaiting trial, where all the evidence collected was presented. At the trial, Irina looked broken and humiliated. She realized that her actions had led to catastrophic consequences, not only for her, but also for her family. The court sentenced her to several years in prison for drug addiction, public disorder, and debauchery. Andrei felt relieved, knowing that Irina could no longer harm him and their children. Her arrest and conviction helped clear his name and restore his reputation. "You made the right choice," said Pyotr as they left the courthouse. "Now you can focus on the future and your children." Andrei nodded, feeling that a new chapter in his life was just beginning. He knew that there was a lot of work ahead, but now he was ready to cope with any difficulties. The trial was coming to an end, when Irina suddenly stood up and asked to speak. The judge, with some caution, allowed her to speak. "I'm pregnant," Irina said quietly, lowering her eyes. "From one of the people I spent time with." The courtroom froze. Andrei, sitting on the other side of the room, felt his heart squeeze. This revelation changed everything. The judge looked at Irina with sympathy and asked her lawyer to confirm what she had said. The doctor's certificates were presented, and the judge was forced to take them into account. "Due to this new circumstance," the judge began, "we cannot send Irina to prison in her condition. However, she will need to undergo drug treatment and participate in a rehabilitation program." Andrei, sitting in his seat, felt his plan for revenge crumble. He could not allow Irina to remain in Paris, continuing to destroy his life and reputation. He had to find another way to rid himself and the children of her influence. After the court, when everyone left, Andrei approached Irina. She looked scared and exhausted. "Irina," he began, trying to remain calm. "You can't stay here any longer. You have to leave." "Where?" she asked, her voice shaking. "To your mother, to the village, to Siberia. There you will be under her care and you can start a new life. Here you is no longer a place." Irina lowered her head. She understood that Andrei was leaving her no choice. Deep down she knew that this was the best decision for everyone. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll leave." Andrei nodded, feeling that despite everything, he had made the right decision. He provided Irina with a ticket and the necessary funds for the first time. A few days later, Irina left Paris and went to Siberia. Now that she was far away, Andrei could focus on rebuilding his life and the lives of his children. He knew that new challenges lay ahead, but he was ready to cope with them, knowing that he had done everything possible to protect his family.